The courtroom was silent. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat in their seats waiting. At the center of it all, Commander HFY stood at the witness platform. His forearms shook slightly as he looked out at the crowd. The Valorian officer had fought in many battles, but this moment scared him more than any enemy fire. The chief judge, a tall being with blue skin and silver eyes, spoke first. "Commander HFY of the Valorian Defense Fleet, you are here to give testimony about your time serving with human forces during the Third Sector War. The tribunal wants to hear about the events that happened 18 months ago. Please begin." HFY took a deep breath. His compound eyes reflected the bright lights of the courtroom as he started to speak. "Your Honors, I came here today because the galaxy needs to know the truth about humans. Not the stories you hear in bars or read in news reports. The real truth about what they are capable of when pushed too far." He paused, looking down at his notes. His hands were still shaking. "My people, the Valorians, have always been proud warriors. We have fought in 17 major conflicts across 4 sectors. We know war. We understand battle. When the Galactic Council asked for volunteers to fight alongside the humans in the Third Sector War, we stepped forward without question." The judge nodded. "Please tell us about your first assignment with human forces." "I was assigned to Joint Task Force Omega," HFY continued. "The human commander was Colonel Jake Martinez. I remember our first meeting very clearly. He was shorter than most of my people, but there was something in his eyes that made me pay attention. He looked at me like he was measuring me for something." HFY's voice grew stronger as he remembered. "Colonel Martinez explained that we would be working together to push back enemy forces in the Outer Rim territories. The Krith Empire had been expanding into neutral space, taking planets and enslaving populations. It seemed like a straightforward military operation. At first, I was confident," the alien commander admitted. "My species has natural armor plating and superior strength. We had advanced weapons and centuries of military tradition. I thought we would be teaching these young humans how real warriors fight. I was very wrong about that." He gestured with one of his 4 arms toward the gallery. "The human unit I was assigned to had 37 soldiers. Lieutenant Amy Brooks was the intelligence officer. She was a small human female with short brown hair and quick eyes. She spoke 5 languages and could calculate battle odds in her head faster than our computers. Sergeant Ryan Clark handled communications. He could coordinate with 12 different units while under enemy fire without breaking concentration. Private Kevin Wright was their technical specialist. He could fix anything or build weapons from spare parts in minutes." HFY paused again, his voice becoming quieter. "These humans seemed normal at first. They laughed and told jokes. They shared food and talked about their families back home. Captain Ben Torres showed me pictures of his children. Staff Sergeant Maria Gonzalez taught me a card game from her home planet Earth. They seemed so ordinary," he said, looking directly at the judges. "That was the first thing that confused me. In my experience, great warriors carry themselves with pride and dignity. They speak of honor and glory. These humans acted like regular people who happened to wear military uniforms." The chief judge leaned forward. "When did you first see them in combat?" HFY's breathing became heavier. "Our first joint operation was on Kepler 442b. It was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission. Lieutenant Brooks briefed us on the target area. Enemy Krith forces had established a forward base in the northern mountains. Our job was to observe their numbers and report back to headquarters. The mission plan seemed reasonable by galactic military standards," he continued. "Approach under cover of darkness, set up observation posts, gather intelligence for 3 days, then withdraw. Standard operating procedure that any civilized military force would follow." HFY stopped speaking for a moment. He looked around the courtroom, then back at his notes. The terrain was difficult. Rocky mountains with deep valleys and thick forests. The enemy base was built into the side of a cliff, with good defensive positions and clear lines of sight in all directions. We approached the target area just before dawn on the second day. I was positioned with Sergeant Danny Foster and 2 other human soldiers on a ridge about 2 kilometers from the enemy base. Everything was going according to plan. His voice began to shake again. Then we received a communication from another observation team, They reported that enemy forces had captured 3 of our soldiers during a patrol. One of them was Corporal Lisa Adams, a young human female who had joined the unit just 2 months earlier. Zexhai looked up at the judges. In galactic military tradition, the loss of soldiers during reconnaissance operations is unfortunate, but expected. Standard protocol would be to complete the mission, gather the intelligence, and then consider rescue operations through proper military channels. I expected Colonel Martinez to follow these established procedures, he said. Instead, I watched something that changed my understanding of warfare forever. The alien commander's voice grew quiet, forcing everyone in the courtroom to lean forward to hear him. Sergeant Ryan Clark received the communication about the captured soldiers. I was standing next to him when the message came through. I saw his face change. The friendly, joking human I had been talking to just minutes before was gone. Clark looked at me with eyes that seemed completely different. Cold, hard, like looking into the eyes of a predator that had just spotted its prey. He spoke into his communication device with a voice I had never heard before. Zexhai paused, remembering. He said, "Command, this is Observation Team Alpha. We have 3 personnel captured by enemy forces. Request immediate authorization for recovery protocols." Then he waited for exactly 10 seconds before adding, "Sir, they have Lisa." The response from Colonel Martinez came back immediately. Zexhai continued. He said, "All teams, mission, parameters have changed. We are now authorized for full combat operations. I repeat, the gloves are off. Bring our people home." The alien commander looked around the courtroom again. I did not understand what the gloves are off meant at the time. I asked Sergeant Foster about it. He looked at me with the same cold expression I had seen on Clark's face. Foster said, "Commander, up until now we have been playing by your rules, following galactic conventions for civilized warfare. But when someone takes our people, when they threaten our family, we stop playing games." Zexhai's 4 arms were shaking more noticeably now. I watched as the humans began preparing for something that looked nothing like the reconnaissance mission we had planned. Private Wright started assembling equipment I had never seen before. Weapons that seemed far too powerful for our mission parameters. Staff Sergeant Gonzalez began loading ammunition that was clearly designed for maximum destruction rather than precision targeting. When I asked her about it, she simply said, "We don't leave our people behind, and we don't follow anyone else's rules when our family is in danger." The chief judge spoke up. "Commander, please tell us what happened next." Zexhai took another deep breath. "What happened next, Your Honors, was my first glimpse into what humans are really capable of when they stop holding back. Everything I had seen up to that point, all their normal behavior and friendly conversation, had been them operating under restrictions." He looked directly at the judges. "I was about to learn that humans do not fight wars the way the rest of the galaxy does. They do not see combat as a game of honor or a test of courage. They see it as a problem to be solved through the complete destruction of anyone who threatens what they care about." The courtroom remained silent as Zexhai prepared to continue his testimony. The alien commander's hands were no longer shaking. His voice had become steady and clear. "What I witnessed in the hours that followed changed everything I thought I knew about warfare, about humans, and about what civilized beings are capable of when pushed beyond their limits." Commander Zexhai continued his testimony, his voice growing stronger as he recalled the events that followed. The courtroom remained silent, every being focused on his words. After Colonel Martinez gave the order to begin combat operations, I watched the humans transform before my eyes, Zexhai said. It was like watching actors remove their masks. The friendly, casual soldiers I had been working with for weeks suddenly became something else entirely. He gestured with one of his 4 arms. Captain Ben Torres gathered his team leaders around a portable holographic display. I was invited to observe the planning session. What I saw there violated every principle of civilized warfare I had ever learned. The alien commander paused, looking at his notes. The enemy base was built into a cliff face approximately 800 meters long and 300 meters high. According to our intelligence, it housed roughly 2,000 Krith soldiers and had strong defensive positions. Standard galactic military doctrine would call for a siege operation lasting several weeks, followed by negotiated surrender terms. Captain Torres looked at the display for exactly 30 seconds. Zexhai continued. Then he turned to Lieutenant Amy Brooks and said, "How long do we have before they start hurting our people?" She replied, "Intelligence suggests prisoner. Interrogation begins in 6 hours." Torres nodded and said, "Then we have 5 hours to end this." Zexhai's compound eyes reflected the courtroom lights. I interrupted at that point. I told Captain Torres that a direct assault on a fortified position would result in massive casualties for both sides. I reminded him about the Galactic Convention on Proportional Response, which requires military forces to use the minimum force necessary to achieve objectives. The alien commander's voice became quieter. Captain Torres looked at me with those cold human eyes I was beginning to recognize. He said, "Commander, with respect, we appreciate your concern about conventions and casualties, but you need to understand something about humans. We do not negotiate when our family is threatened. We do not accept losses when our people are taken. We eliminate the threat completely." I asked him what he meant by eliminate the threat completely. Zexhai said. Lieutenant Brooks answered for him. She pointed to the holographic display and began outlining what they called their response protocol. Zexhai took a deep breath before continuing. According to Lieutenant Brooks, the humans would not just attack the enemy base. They planned to destroy every single structure, vehicle, weapon, and defensive position within a 5-kilometer radius of where their soldiers were being held. I protested that this level of destruction was excessive. The alien commander said, that it went far beyond what was necessary to rescue 3 prisoners. Sergeant Danny Foster, who had been quietly setting up artillery equipment, stopped his work and walked over to me. Foster said, "Commander, you still do not understand. This is not about rescuing 3 soldiers. This is about sending a message to every enemy force in this sector. The message is simple. If you take our people, we will not just rescue them. We will make sure you can never threaten anyone again." Zexhai looked around the courtroom. I realized then that humans have a completely different philosophy about warfare than any other species I had encountered. Most galactic civilizations see combat as a series of moves and countermoves, like a game with rules and acceptable outcomes. Humans see warfare as a problem to be solved permanently, he continued. They do not fight to win battles. They fight to make sure the enemy never wants to fight them again. The chief judge leaned forward. "Please describe the assault itself, Commander." Zexhai's hands began to shake again. The attack began exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes after the planning session ended. I was positioned with staff, Sergeant Maria Gonzalez, on a ridge overlooking the target area. She had set up weapons that I had never seen before in galactic military service. When I asked about the unusual equipment, Gonzalez explained that humans design their weapons differently than other species, Zexhai said. Most galactic military technology is built to disable enemies or force surrender. Human weapons are built to completely destroy whatever they are pointed at. The alien commander paused, collecting his thoughts. The first phase of the attack was what the humans called area denial. Captain Torres coordinated strikes that systematically destroyed every escape route from the enemy base. Not just blocked them, but completely eliminated them. I watched through my observation equipment as human artillery turned mountain passes into rubble, Zexhai continued. They collapsed tunnel systems that had taken the enemy months to build. They destroyed landing pads so no aircraft could provide support or evacuation. The second phase was what they called infrastructure elimination, he said. Private Kevin Wright had somehow managed to access the enemy's power grid and water supply systems. In less than 10 minutes, the entire enemy base went dark and lost all utilities. Zexhai's voice grew more strained. But the most disturbing part was the third phase, which they called psychological warfare. The humans began broadcasting messages to the enemy forces inside the base. "What kind of messages?" asked the chief judge. Captain Torres spoke directly to the enemy commander, Zexhai replied. He said, "This is Captain Torres of the human military. You are holding 3 of our soldiers prisoner. You have exactly 10 minutes to release them unharmed and surrender your forces. If you do not comply, we will demonstrate why no intelligent species in this galaxy chooses to fight humans more than once. The alien commander looked around the courtroom. The enemy commander responded by threatening to execute the prisoners if the humans did not withdraw. I expected negotiations to begin at that point. Instead, Captain Torres simply said, "You have made your choice. All units commence final phase." What happened next? The judge asked. Zexhi's forearms were shaking visibly now. The humans unleashed what they called overwhelming force projection. It was not a battle in any traditional sense, it was systematic destruction on a scale that I had never witnessed. Sergeant Foster coordinated artillery strikes that did not just hit the enemy base, he said. They reshaped the entire mountainside. I watched through my equipment as human weapons carved new valleys into the landscape. Staff Sergeant Gonzalez used weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics, Zexhi continued. She could destroy enemy positions that were completely hidden behind solid rock. When I asked her how this was possible, she said, "Human engineering does not accept the word impossible." The assault lasted exactly 18 minutes, the alien commander said. When it was over, the enemy base no longer existed. The mountain it had been built into had been reshaped. The surrounding terrain looked like the surface of a dead planet. Zexhi paused, his voice becoming very quiet. And the 3 human prisoners walked out completely unharmed. Corporal Lisa Adams was carrying a Krith weapon as a souvenir. "What happened to the enemy forces?" asked the judge. "The survivors surrendered immediately," Zexhi replied. "But that is not the important part of this story. The important part is what happened next." The alien commander looked directly at the judges. I asked Captain Torres why the humans had used such overwhelming force for a simple rescue operation. He looked at me like I was asking why water flows downhill. He said, "Commander, we did not rescue 3 soldiers today. We sent a message to every enemy force in this sector. That message is simple. Humans do not negotiate with people who threaten their family. We eliminate the threat so completely that no one else even thinks about trying it." Zexhi took a deep breath. Within 6 hours, every Krith military unit in the sector had withdrawn to their home territory. They sent a message requesting a ceasefire and offering to discuss peace terms. "But your honors," the alien commander said, his voice growing stronger, "that was just the beginning. What I witnessed that day was humans fighting with restrictions, following what they considered acceptable rules of engagement." The courtroom remained silent as Zexhi prepared to continue. I was about to learn that everything I had seen, all the overwhelming force and devastating tactics, was considered restraint by human standards. Commander Zexhi shifted his position at the witness platform, his forearms no longer shaking. His voice had grown steady as he continued his testimony before the Galactic War Crimes Tribunal. The rescue operation on Kepler 442b was successful, but it left me deeply troubled, Zexhi said. I had watched the humans destroy an entire mountain to save 3 soldiers. The scale of destruction seemed impossible to justify, even though their people were returned safely. The alien commander looked around the courtroom. After the operation, I requested a private meeting with Major Chris Peterson, the human strategic advisor assigned to our joint task force. I needed to understand their approach to warfare. Major Peterson was a tall human with gray hair and calm eyes, Zexhi continued. He listened to my concerns about the excessive force used during the rescue. When I finished speaking, he smiled in that way humans do when they think you have missed something obvious. He said, "Commander, you are thinking about this operation in the wrong way. You see it as excessive force used to rescue 3 prisoners. We see it as an investment in future peace." Zexhi paused, remembering the conversation. I asked him to explain what he meant by investment in future peace. Major Peterson walked over to a map display showing the current positions of enemy forces throughout the sector. He pointed to various locations and said, "Before yesterday, Krith commanders thought humans were just another species they could fight using traditional tactics. They believed they could take our soldiers prisoner and use them as bargaining tools. Now they know better. The alien commander gestured toward the gallery. Major Peterson explained what humans call their deterrent doctrine. The idea is simple. Make the cost of harming humans so high that enemies will avoid conflict entirely rather than risk the consequences. This concept was completely foreign to my understanding of military strategy, Zexhai admitted. In Valorian military tradition, we fight with honor and accept losses as part of warfare. We negotiate when possible and use measured responses to enemy actions. Major Peterson said, "Commander, your people fight wars to win battles. Humans fight wars to make sure we never have to fight them again. Every enemy who sees what happens when they threaten us becomes someone who will choose peace instead of conflict." Zexhai took a deep breath before continuing. I thought I understood human military thinking after that conversation. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, we received orders for our second major engagement, and I learned that what I had witnessed was just the beginning. The chief judge leaned forward. "Please tell us about this second engagement, Commander." Intelligence reports indicated that enemy forces had seized control of mining station XK739 in the asteroid belt, Zexhai said. The station housed approximately 5,000 civilian workers from 12 different species, including 300 human families. The enemy had sent a message demanding that all human military forces withdraw from the sector, he continued. If we did not comply within 72 hours, they threatened to begin executing hostages, starting with the human civilians. Zexhai's voice grew quieter. I expected the human command to begin evacuation procedures and prepare for lengthy siege operations. Instead, I watched Colonel Jake Martinez assemble what the humans called a rapid response team, led by Commander Susan Hayes. Commander Hayes was a compact human female with short blonde hair and the coldest eyes I had ever seen, the alien commander said. When she briefed the assembled officers on the situation, her voice never changed tone, but everyone in the room seemed to grow more alert. She said, "Ladies and gentlemen, enemy forces have made a critical error in judgment. They have threatened human civilians. This is no longer a military operation. This is now a family matter." Zexhai looked around the courtroom. I asked Commander Hayes what the difference was between a military operation and a family matter. She looked at me with those cold eyes and said, "Commander, when we fight military operations, we follow rules and conventions. When someone threatens our families, we follow different rules." The battle plan for mining station XK739 was unlike anything I had seen in my military career, Zexhai continued. Instead of a careful approach designed to minimize civilian casualties, the humans prepared what they call overwhelming force projection. Lieutenant Rick Johnson, their tactical planning officer, explained the strategy to me, the alien commander said. He said, "Commander, we are going to hit the enemy so hard and so fast that they will not have time to think about hurting the hostages." I pointed out that rapid assaults on fortified positions typically result in high casualty rates, Zexhai said. Lieutenant Johnson smiled and said, "That depends on who is doing the assaulting and what weapons they are using." The alien commander paused, collecting his thoughts. The assault began exactly 48 hours after the enemy ultimatum was delivered. I was positioned aboard the command ship with Colonel Martinez, observing the operation through tactical displays. What I witnessed challenged everything I thought I knew about space combat, Zexhai said. The humans did not approach the mining station like a traditional military force. They moved like predators hunting prey. Captain Paula Martinez commanded the first wave of attack ships, he continued. Her vessels used weapons and tactics that seemed designed not just to destroy enemy forces, but to create what humans call shock and awe. The enemy defensive positions around the mining station were eliminated in less than 4 minutes, Zexhai said. But the humans did not stop there. They systematically destroyed every enemy ship, supply depot, and communication relay within a 50-kilometer radius of the station. The chief judge interrupted. "Commander, were the civilians rescued safely?" "All 5,000 civilians were recovered without a single casualty," Zexhai replied. "But that is not the remarkable part of this story. The remarkable part is how the humans accomplished this." The alien commander's voice grew stronger, I watched through tactical displays as human boarding teams entered the mining station. They moved through the corridors like they had built the facility themselves. Every enemy position was neutralized before the defenders could react. When I asked Colonel Martinez how his troops had such detailed knowledge of the station layout, he said, "Commander, humans do not plan military operations. We plan solutions to problems. This problem required us to remove enemy forces from a civilian facility without harming the people we came to protect." The boarding operation lasted 18 minutes. HFY continued. When it was over, enemy forces had been completely eliminated, all civilians were safe, and the station was fully operational. I spoke with some of the rescued civilians afterward, the alien commander said. They told me that the human soldiers had moved through the station so quickly and efficiently that most of the hostages never saw their rescuers. They only knew they were safe when human voices announced over the communication system that the threat had been eliminated. HFY looked around the courtroom. But the most disturbing part came after the rescue was complete. I was reviewing tactical reports when Commander Hayes approached me with a data pad. She said, "Commander, I want to show you something that might help you understand how humans think about these situations." The data pad contained detailed intelligence about enemy military capabilities throughout the sector. According to the intelligence, the enemy forces that had seized the mining station represented less than 2% of total Krith military strength in the region, HFY said. I asked Commander Hayes why she was showing me this information. She said, "Because tomorrow, the remaining 98% of enemy forces are going to receive a full report about what happened here today. They are going to learn exactly how quickly and completely we eliminated their comrades." Commander Hayes continued. "They are going to understand that threatening human civilians results in immediate and total destruction of everyone involved. Most importantly, they are going to share this information with every other enemy force in known space." HFY's voice became very quiet. I asked her if humans always fought with such overwhelming force. Commander Hayes looked at me with those cold eyes and said, "Commander, everything you have witnessed so far has been us fighting with restrictions. We follow galactic conventions and try to minimize unnecessary destruction." She paused, then added, "But if someone crosses certain lines, if they threaten our families or our civilians, we stop following other people's rules and start following our own." The courtroom remained silent as Commander HFY prepared to continue his testimony. The alien veteran looked directly at the judges. "Your Honors, I thought I had seen the full extent of human military capabilities. I was about to learn how wrong I was." Commander HFY's voice grew darker as he reached the most disturbing part of his testimony. The courtroom had become completely silent, with hundreds of beings from across the galaxy hanging on every word. "The final battle of my deployment began 6 weeks after the mining station rescue," HFY said. "Intelligence reports indicated that the Krith Empire was planning a massive offensive against human colony worlds. Their target was the new Denver system, home to over 12 million human civilians." The alien commander paused, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh courtroom lights. The enemy strategy was designed specifically to force humans into an impossible choice. Krith forces would simultaneously attack civilian population centers on 3 different planets, while human military forces were deployed far away on other missions. General Frank Davis called an emergency meeting of all senior officers. HFY continued. "I was invited to attend as the senior Valorian representative. What I witnessed in that meeting changed my understanding of what civilized beings are capable of." General Davis was an older human with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes, the alien commander said. He had fought in more conflicts than any other officer I had met. When he spoke, every human in the room listened with complete attention. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the enemy has made a fatal mistake. They have chosen to target our civilian populations. They have crossed what we call the red line." HFY looked around the courtroom. I asked General Davis what he meant by the red line. He looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, not hatred, but something much colder. He said, "Commander, up until now we have been fighting this war according to galactic conventions. We have used measured responses and followed rules of engagement designed to minimize casualties and destruction. The enemy has just told us that they no longer wish to follow those rules. The alien commander's hands began to shake again. General. Davis walked over to a secure communication terminal and entered a code I had never seen him use before. He spoke into the device and said, "This is General Davis. Authorization code Alpha 77. I am requesting immediate activation of Protocol 7. There was a pause, then a voice responded, "General, are you certain?" Protocol 7 has never been used in galactic warfare before. General Davis replied, "The enemy has chosen to target our civilians. Protocol 7 is authorized. Repeat, Protocol 7 is authorized. All restrictions are now lifted." Zexhi's voice became very quiet. I asked what Protocol 7 meant. Lieutenant Colonel Nancy White, the human protocol specialist, explained it to me. She said, "Commander, everything you have witnessed over the past months has been us fighting with restrictions. We have been following galactic conventions, using measured responses and trying to minimize collateral damage. Protocol 7 removes all of those restrictions." I asked her what that meant in practical terms. Zexhi continued. She looked at me and said, "It means we stop pretending to be civilized and show the enemy what humans are really capable of when someone threatens our families." The chief judge leaned forward. "Commander, please describe what happened when Protocol 7 was activated." Zexhi took a deep breath. The change in human behavior was immediate and terrifying. Within minutes of the protocol activation, officers who had been friendly and professional for months became something else entirely. Captain Tony Garcia, who had always been cheerful and quick to share jokes, walked past me without acknowledgement. The alien commander said. His eyes had the same cold expression I had, seen on other humans, but intensified beyond anything I had experienced. The human command center transformed into something that looked more like a predator's hunting ground than a military headquarters. Zexhi continued. Officers moved with deadly efficiency, speaking in short, clipped sentences. The casual conversation and relaxed atmosphere disappeared completely. I was assigned to observe the human counterattack from the command ship, he said. What I witnessed over the next 72 hours challenged everything I thought I knew about the nature of warfare and civilization itself. The human response began with what they called total information warfare, Zexhi said. They did not just attack enemy military positions. They systematically destroyed every communication system, computer network, and data storage facility in Krith space. Within 6 hours, the entire Krith Empire had been cut off from all forms of electronic communication, he continued. Their government could not contact their military forces. Their military commanders could not coordinate with each other. They were completely blind and isolated. The alien commander paused, collecting his thoughts. But that was just the beginning. The humans deployed weapons and tactics that I had never seen before, technologies that seemed to violate basic principles of physics. Captain Tony Garcia led the first wave of what humans called unrestricted warfare, Zexhi said. His ships moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. They appeared and disappeared without warning, striking targets with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. I asked the human technical officer how their ships could move like that. He continued. She said, Commander, human engineering has always been driven by military necessity. When we stop worrying about galactic safety regulations and energy consumption limits, our technology becomes much more effective. Zexhi's voice grew more strained. The destruction was systematic and complete. Human forces did not just attack enemy military targets. They eliminated every single piece of infrastructure that could support future military operations. Planets that had taken centuries to develop were reduced to empty rock in hours, he said. Entire star systems that had housed millions of enemy civilians were evacuated before their suns were destabilized. I protested to General Davis that this level of destruction went far beyond military necessity. Zexhi continued. He looked at me with those cold human eyes and said, Commander, the enemy chose to target our civilians. We are simply ensuring they never have the capability to make that choice again. The alien commander stopped speaking for a moment, his forearms shaking visibly. I spoke with Sergeant Major Helen Cooper, who had been assigned to explain human military psychology to alien observers. She said, "Commander, you still do not understand what you are witnessing. This is not excessive force or war crimes. This is what happens when someone makes the mistake of threatening human families." I asked her how humans could justify such complete destruction. Zexhai said. She looked at me and said, "We do not need to justify protecting our children. The enemy chose to threaten our civilians. Everything that happens to them after that point is their own fault." Sergeant Major Cooper continued, "You want to see how humans fight wars. This is how we fight wars. This is what we become when someone threatens our families. We do not negotiate, we do not compromise, and we do not stop until the threat is completely eliminated." Zexhai looked around the courtroom. The human counterattack lasted exactly 72 hours. When it was over, the Krith Empire no longer existed as a military force. Their government had surrendered unconditionally, their military infrastructure was completely destroyed, and their surviving population was under human protection. But the most disturbing part was not the destruction itself, he said. It was how calm and professional the humans remained throughout the entire operation. General Davis coordinated the elimination of an entire enemy civilization with the same tone of voice he used to order coffee. Zexhai continued. The humans never showed anger or hatred. They simply solved the problem of enemy threats through complete and systematic destruction. The alien commander's voice became very quiet. After the operation was complete, I asked General Davis if humans always responded to threats with such overwhelming force. He said, "Commander, the enemy had a choice. They could have fought us, according to galactic conventions, accepting victory or defeat like civilized beings. Instead, they chose to threaten our children. When someone makes that choice, they discover what humans are really capable of." I asked him if Protocol 7 represented the full extent of human military capabilities. Zexhai said. General Davis looked at me and smiled in that cold way. "Humans do when they think you have missed something important." He said, "Commander, Protocol 7 is what we use when we want to send a message to other potential enemies. It is designed to be visible and dramatic, to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens us." Then he paused and added, "But if someone ever actually succeeds in harming our civilians, they will discover that we have protocols that go much higher than 7. The courtroom remained completely silent as Commander Zexhai prepared to conclude his testimony. The alien veteran looked directly at the judges with eyes that reflected trauma and understanding. Commander Zexhai took a deep breath as he prepared to conclude his testimony. The courtroom remained completely silent, every being focused on his final words about humanity and the true nature of their military capabilities. The aftermath of Protocol 7 taught me more about humans than all my previous months of service combined, Zexhai said. Within hours of the Krith Empire's complete military collapse, human forces switched from total warfare back to peaceful operations as if nothing unusual had happened. The alien commander gestured with one of his 4 arms. I watched General Davis coordinate humanitarian aid for the surviving Krith population with the same efficiency he had used to destroy their military infrastructure. There was no celebration, no expressions of triumph, just professional completion of necessary tasks. The speed of this transition disturbed me more than the destruction itself, Zexhai continued. I asked Sergeant Major Helen Cooper how humans could switch so quickly from devastating warfare to peaceful assistance. She looked at me with patient eyes and said, Commander, you still do not understand what you witnessed. We did not switch from war to peace. We solved a problem. The Krith Empire threatened our civilians, so we eliminated their ability to threaten anyone ever again. Now we help their survivors rebuild as peaceful neighbors. Zexhai paused, his voice growing stronger. 3 days after the operation ended, representatives from the former Krith Empire requested permission to attend peace negotiations. I was assigned to observe these talks as part of my continuing education about human military psychology. The Krith delegation arrived at the negotiation station, clearly traumatized, the alien commander said. Their leader, Prime Minister Kethral, could barely speak without his voice shaking. When he looked at the human negotiators, I saw pure terror in his eyes. Ambassador Carl Johnson led the human negotiating team. Zexhai continued. He was a calm, middle-aged human with gray hair and a gentle voice. He greeted the Krith delegation with polite formality and offered them refreshments before beginning the talks. The contrast was remarkable, the alien commander said. The enemy representatives who had been threatening to destroy human colonies, just days before now, sat trembling across from humans who acted like they were discussing trade agreements. Prime Minister Ketharal kept asking the same question throughout the negotiations, Zexhai said. He would look at Ambassador Johnson and say, "How do we make sure this never happens again? How do we ensure that humans never do to us what they did during Protocol 7? Ambassador Johnson's response was simple and direct. The alien commander continued. He said, "Minister, the answer is equally simple. Never threaten human civilians again. Never attack our colonies. Never take our people prisoner. Follow these basic rules and you will never see Protocol 7 again." Zexhai looked around the courtroom, but Prime Minister Ketharal was not satisfied with that answer. He said, "Ambassador, we need guarantees. We need to know that your people will not use these weapons against us if we have minor disagreements or trade disputes." Ambassador Johnson smiled in that patient way humans use when explaining something obvious, the alien commander said. He replied, "Minister, humans have no interest in using military force against peaceful neighbors. We only respond with overwhelming force when someone threatens our families. As long as you remain peaceful, you have nothing to fear from us." The Yao. Negotiations concluded with the Krith Empire agreeing to complete demilitarization and accepting human oversight of their government, Zexhai said. But the most important part came during a private conversation I had with Prime Minister Ketharal. The alien commander's voice became quieter. I asked him what his people had learned from their conflict with humanity. He looked at me with eyes that showed deep trauma and said, "We learned that humans are not like other species. They do not fight for territory or resources or political advantage." He continued, "Humans fight to eliminate threats to their families. They do not negotiate with people who threaten their children. They do not accept partial victories or temporary solutions. They solve problems permanently." Prime Minister Ketharal paused, then added, "We thought we could intimidate them by threatening their civilians. Instead, we discovered that threatening human families is the one thing guaranteed to result in complete destruction." Zexhai took another deep breath before continuing. After the peace negotiations ended, I requested a final meeting with General Davis. I needed to understand what I had witnessed from a human perspective. General Davis met with me in his private office, the alien commander said. I asked him to explain human military philosophy in terms that other galactic species could understand. He said, "Commander, most species see warfare as a competition. They fight to gain advantages, control territory, or achieve political goals. They accept losses as part of the process and negotiate when the costs become too high." General Davis continued, "Humans see warfare differently. We fight to solve problems permanently. When someone threatens our families, they become a problem that needs to be eliminated completely. We do not negotiate with threats to our children." Zexhai's voice grew stronger as he recalled the conversation. I asked General Davis if humans always respond to threats with such overwhelming force. He explained something that changed my entire understanding of human nature. He said, "Commander, humans prefer peace above all else. We want to live quietly with our families, build things, explore the universe, and help our neighbors. But we learned long ago that the only way to maintain peace is to make war so terrible that no one wants to fight us." General Davis walked over to his window and looked out at the stars. The alien commander continued. He said, "Every enemy that sees what happens during Protocol 7 becomes someone who chooses peace instead of conflict. Every species that witnesses human military capabilities decides that cooperation is much safer than confrontation." I asked him about the protocols that go higher than 7, Zexhai said. General Davis looked at me with those calm human eyes and said, "Commander, those protocols exist for enemies who successfully harm our civilians despite our warnings. They represent what humans are capable of when we stop trying to be civilized. Altogether," he paused, then added, Fortunately, no one has ever been foolish enough to find out what those protocols involve. Zexhai looked directly at the judges of the tribunal. Your Honors, that conversation taught me the most important truth about humanity. They are not the aggressive monsters that propaganda makes them out to be. They are far more dangerous than that. Humans are a species that genuinely wants peace, the alien commander said. They prefer cooperation to conflict, building to destroying, creation to devastation. But they have developed the most terrifying military capabilities in known space as insurance against anyone who might threaten their peaceful way of life. The horror of human warfare is not that they enjoy violence, Zexhai continued. The horror is that they can switch from peaceful cooperation to total devastation without any emotional transition. They solve the problem of military threats with the same calm efficiency they use to solve any other problem. I learned that humans do not fight wars to win battles or gain territory, he said. They fight wars to make sure they never have to fight them again. Every enemy they destroy completely becomes a lesson for potential future enemies. Commander Zexhai's voice became very clear and strong as he prepared to conclude his testimony. After 18 months of service with human forces, I returned to Valorian space with a single recommendation for my government and all galactic species. Humans will be the most loyal and peaceful allies possible, he said. They will share their technology, protect their friends, and cooperate in every possible way. They will follow galactic conventions and respect other species' sovereignty. But never under any circumstances should anyone mistake their desire for peace as weakness or inability to wage total war, Zexhai concluded. Humans have proven that they possess military capabilities beyond anything known in galactic history, and they will use those capabilities without hesitation to protect their families. The alien commander looked around the silent courtroom one final time. The choice is simple. We can be humanity's friends and enjoy their protection and cooperation, or we can threaten them and discover why no intelligent species chooses to fight humans more than once. Your Honors, that concludes my testimony.